Good morning. And Happy New Year to you. Oh, you did much better than the first service. They did not respond. And thank you. Yes, tomorrow is my birthday. I turn 35. Obviously, I'm not starting the new year off with honesty. Well, I'm just excited because we have got such a beautiful program prepared for you, and I want to talk you through some of the items in your bulletin that are designed to give you an extraordinary experience at your Center for Spiritual Living this year. The first is I guess this is goldenrod. This is the entire year on a single piece of paper. Not only does it have the affirmations that we use every month, and by the way, those affirmations correspond with the affirmations in our calendar that we prepared with photographs from one of our very own members at the Center for Spiritual Living, and that's available in the bookstore. There are also the scheduled guest speakers, so you can plan when you don't want to be here. To tell the truth, you know what? If you miss our guest speakers, you might be missing the best part of our offering, because hearing the message through a different voice, and we have some extraordinary guest speakers lined up this year. So I encourage you to come on the days when the guest speakers are here and stay away the rest of the time. Not only that, but also the recommended reading for each month. As you know, if you've been coming here for a while, we often recommend a book for supplemental reading that corresponds to the topic that we're studying each month. For example, this month we're recommending Create a World That Works, which harmonizes very well with the topic that we're looking at today. Also, in your bulletin, you will have received a card, and this relates to something that is happening on Wednesday evenings. Actually, there are a couple of beautiful things happening on Wednesday evenings. The first is that we've added a fellowship time to our Wednesday evening service. So directly after the service, we serve finger food, light snacks, and it's an opportunity for people to break bread together and meet each other, a non-stress way of connecting, because in a community our size, sometimes a person can feel like a nameless face. Well, no longer. You can come to Wednesday evenings and spend some time after the service and talk to people and connect. It's a really lovely opportunity to do that and foster a sense of belonging. Each Wednesday evening, the topic is going to be based on a reading from the book written by Ernest Holmes called The Science of Mind, which we fondly refer to as the textbook, because it's the book we use in many of our classes as we study together this idea of metaphysics. And there is a guide to reading that book throughout a year, and I'll tell you how that guide came about. A long while ago, I was having a conversation over coffee with a friend of mine, and he's from the Mennonite tradition, and he was telling me how every year at the beginning of the year, his family members and friends began reading the Bible from the beginning, and by the time the end of the year comes around, they've covered the whole thing, and they follow a guide that sorts it out into little portions to read. And he said to me, well, why don't you have such a thing for your own tradition? And that's how it was born. I sat down and I created it so that we have a guide for the whole year, and it jumps around the textbook so that the small readings we have are seasonally appropriate. And thank heavens our book is slightly shorter than the entire Bible, so it's a very easy reading. So what we've done is we've printed out the structure of all the Wednesdays in the year, just in case you want to read ahead, because each Wednesday the topic will relate to the reading on that day or close to it. Now, if you're super ambitious and you want to start now to read the entire textbook, we have the entire scheme for the whole year, and that's available available for you outside in the social hall under the monitor. You can pick that up and start reading now. You don't have too much to catch up, and by the end of the year, you will have read the entire textbook. And for those people who are listening on radio or online or watching the video, you can pick these up all at our center during the week or at Stepping Stones Bookstore, or you can send us an email with your address and we will mail it directly to you. That brings us up to date, and we're ready to start with today and our topic, which is a world that works for everyone. Now, the first time I heard that phrase, I both loved it and I wondered, how could it even be possible? Then I remembered something I read in that textbook I was referring to, written by Ernest Holmes, and it said, "We do not teach that you can get what you want. If we could all get what we want, it might be disastrous, for it is certain that most of us would want things that would interfere with the well-being of someone else." Oh my. Well, it both comforted me and disturbed me. Because I thought, well, if we can't get what we want, what can we get? You know, my mother, she wanted everyone to be happy. She was a pleaser, a people pleaser. She just wanted everybody to be happy. Trouble is, she had a very clear idea about what happiness looked like. Unfortunately, her idea for happiness for me and my idea for happiness for me was not the same idea of happiness. And so it came to pass that often when I was happy, she was not. Or when she was happy, I was not. And so I learned from very early on that the way the world works is that everyone is going to be unhappy part of the time. Now, anyone who's taken any of the classes that we teach here with me, and they're starting soon, they'll know that I use this one illustration about my mother quite frequently. It works so very well. It's the illustration of her idea for a respectable career in comparison to my idea for a respectable career. It's not the same idea. So we were praying frequently for different outcomes. I have to acknowledge my mother was very patient with me. I mean, I can't imagine what it must have been like to raise a child like me. And she was very patient, and she was very kind, and she was always very proud of me. I felt that, I knew that. I think if it was in her power, she would give me anything that I asked for. There was not a moment in my life where I doubted her love. Not a moment. And yet, I know that if it were possible, she would probably have preferred that I got married to a woman. She would probably have preferred to have had grandchildren. She would probably have preferred for me to get a real job. And that real job, according to her, was in accounting. Well, because to her, that was a transferable skill. She just had my best interests at heart. She saw that as something that could earn me a living sustainably, so we didn't see eye to eye. But we loved each other. And that's what made our world work. In the presence of our differences, with our disappointments and our frustrations and our disagreements, love is what made our worlds work. We had different outcomes in mind, but we had the same motive. So a world that works for everyone ought not to be confused with an idea of a world in which we control other people's outcomes, or a world in which we take what belongs to someone else, even their freedom, or a world in which everybody gets their way all of the time and there's no disagreements. No, I think it's something higher than that. It's an ideal. It's a vision. And the point of a vision is to help us to look up from what we already have, so that we can reach beyond what is already so. It has to be bigger than what we've got right now. And if it is to be a good vision, it has to be so audaciously large that we can't even imagine how it might come to pass. Just because I could never figure out the details about how my mother and I were to get along, it should never stop me or you or anyone from having the vision, and having the vision so well that it infiltrates me and changes me. That is the way of metaphysics. Our work is to, as clearly as we can, accept the highest vision as we can, and then the creative intelligence of the universe is what flows through us to produce it. I do believe that vision has that kind of power in us. And for it to be real, it has to touch some real note in us. It has to touch some tender root in us that excites us and feels genuine, the vision. That's why I love the innocence of that song we sang this morning. I'd like to teach the world to sing. I'd like to make the world a home. I'd like to furnish it with love. I'd like to see the world for once standing hand in hand. It's why I love the lyrics to John Lennon's epic song that asks us to imagine all the world living as one. It's why I love the prophetic vision in the Bible, in the book of Isaiah, of the peaceable kingdom. All of these are visions that point to something that is so unlike what we have now that we might be challenged or stretched to accept it or embrace it right now, while at the same time it is exciting because it reaches in and it resonates with something that is so ancient and so affirmative and so hopeful, something in us that sees that, yes, this is the right destination for us, but we just don't yet know the way there. The words in Isaiah, they describe a vision of a world in which the wolf shall live with the lamb, and the leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the lion together. And a little child shall lead them. And the cow and the bear shall graze together, and their young shall lie down together. And the lion shall eat straw just like the ox, while nursing children shall play safely near a snake's hole, and young ones will be near a crocodile's den without fear, because they will not hurt or destroy each other on all of my holy mountain, because the earth will be full of the knowledge of holiness as sure as the water covers the sea. To me, the global vision is just another way of describing the peaceable kingdom. It's just another way of singing Imagine. It's just another way of imagining the world for once, standing, holding hands. We are not the first people to imagine this. We are not the first tradition to imagine a world where our differences do not separate us. A world in which spiritual guidance is valued, in which people are seen as expressions of the divine, and in which we live as one human family. Now, each of us may have our own version of this vision, and it might be for ourselves personally, or it might be for the whole entire world. And it may be the case that we just haven't yet agreed on how it should come to pass. My guess is that genuine love for one another will guide us through the maze of our differences and disagreements and disappointments. And I'm guessing also that something has to give way. For a vision of this stature, something has to make room for it to come. And the way of metaphysics is that change, that movement takes place internally first before it ever shows up in the realm of form. Here are some more words from Ernest Holmes. The transformation takes place here, meaning internally. You and I don't have to wonder if it will take place out there. That world will come when enough of us see through the night into the heavenly light. That's why I want to keep practicing seeing the world standing for once, hand in hand, because I have this idea that when enough of us see through the night into that kind of holy light, it will tip the balance, and we won't have to worry about how it will come to pass. Itself will guide us. I mean, if we want to worry about something, I suggest that we worry about the tendency that some of us have to keep things stuck. Not you. But some people have habits that keep things stuck. Do you know what I mean? Not you. Why, just the other day, we had a beautiful Christmas Eve service, candle lighting service. It was wonderful. The stage beautifully decorated. And, oh, it was lovely. And all across the front of the stage were these very expensive faux candles, for the fire issues that we face. And not those, but that one. You see with the flame that is flickering, they're very expensive. They're like $60 a piece. And so they were arranged in the front. And do you know that after the service, we noticed that someone had stolen one of the candles? Just so disappointing, And I went home and I told all my friends about it, and we shared our stories of, being ripped off similarly, and the attending feelings that go with that of being violated and upset. And then at the office the next day, I shared it with the staff, and we also shared our disagreements and kind of got used to the idea of that things like this happen in the world, and we began to plan the strategy that would not let that happen again. Problem is, the candle was never stolen. It had fallen over and rolled down in between the musical equipment. It just couldn't be seen. That's when the habits kick in, right? It's kind of embarrassing how quickly my mind went to terribilizing, and thinking the worst and spreading it. See, I recognize that as a pattern of believing in a world that doesn't work. An idea that has been accepted and believed in for so long that it is the first go-to explanation for many of us. Now, I'm not saying that candles are never stolen. They are. But I mention it because it illustrates how easily patterns can set in, how a person can accept something, whether it's true or not, as long as it conforms to the pattern. And I want to practice new patterns. I want to practice the pattern of seeing the world standing hand in hand. So much so that it becomes a dependable expectation in me. I want to break old habits of terribilizing, break habits of spreading terror. After 15 years in my current house, I finally decided I have to replace the kitchen cabinets. They were poorly designed. They were not logically laid out at all, and I just kept on coping with it. You know how that is. So finally, I saved up my pennies and got me some new kitchen cabinets. And in the process of installing them, things got moved around a bit. So the knives and forks drawer is now next to the stove, where it should be, instead of next to the exit door, where it used to be. To understand that. But I'm so used to the knives being at the door that for the past 4 days, I keep on walking over to that drawer to get a knife, expecting to find knives and forks where they always used to be. And do you know that each time I get there, there's this moment of surprise when I realize again that the knives and forks are not where they used to be, even though I know. That's the way of habits. It's not that I don't understand. It's not that this new plan isn't better. It is. It's just that up until now, I have trusted my old habits more than I even trust the new reality, even more than I trust the testimony of my own senses. But I believe that as I stay with my vision of a better kitchen, it will eventually replace old habits with a new reality, and the old will die away. As we stay with the vision of a peaceable kingdom, I trust it. I trust that it eventually will replace old habits with a new reality, and the old will die away. That's why I'm going to continue practicing till enough of us see through the night into that heavenly light of a world in which love is the highest priority and unites us even in the presence of our disagreements and disappointments and differences. I want to invite you to use your imagination in that way. And not to inhibit your imagination with an explanation of how it is supposed to happen or whether or not it is logical, but to see if you can get in touch with that childlike innocence that you came into the world with, that knew no bounds. And I invite you in this meditation to use exactly that by breathing in first and exhaling. And if you like, let your eyes close so that you can begin with me to imagine your own life, living your own life as if you fully accepted, you fully got it, that you are an expression of divine life. What might that be like? What might it be like if you lived your life in such a way that you consistently put love ahead of differences and disappointments, even of personal preferences? How might that show up? And thinking now of your friends and family and your community, using your imagination, what might it be like if we lived in peace and harmony as a community, as a family, as friends? What might that look like? What might it look like if we not only valued our resources and our environment, even the objects in our life, not only valued them but shared them? What might that look like? And stepping back even more and thinking of the entire planet, our world, and all of its beings, imagine with me all of the beings on this planet having enough to eat, a sense of belonging, and a feeling of safety. What might that look like? And imagine with me a world in which love has already dissolved the barriers that separate us. What could that possibly look like? And now bringing this meditation to a completion by breathing in and exhaling. Whatever it is that came up for you, if something emerged in you, I'm guessing that that is your own version of a global vision according to you, especially if it resonates and excites you. And I think that would be a marvelous thing to write down somewhere and put it up somewhere where you could see it frequently, refresh it, update it, remind yourself about it. It would be a wonderful thing to type up and post to your social media status update and like it. That would be wonderful. Isn't that something?